I've been trying to call. I've been on my own for long enough. Maybe you can show me how to love. Maybe I'm going through withdrawals. You don't even have to do too much. You can turn me on with just a touch, baby. I look around and since it is cold and empty, no one's around to judge me. I can't see clearly when you're gone. And I said, ooh, I'm blinded by the lights. No, I can't sleep until I feel your touch. I said, ooh, I'm drowning in the night. Oh, when I'm like this, you're the one I trust. I'm running out of time, 'cause I can see the sun light up the sky. So I hit the road in overdrive, baby. Hit the road in overdrive. The city's cold and empty. No one's around to judge me. I can't see clearly when you're gone. And I said, ooh, I'm blinded by the lights. No, I can't sleep until I feel your touch. I said, ooh, I'm drowning in the night. Oh, when I'm like this, you're the one I trust. I'm coming back to let you know I can never say it on the phone, but whenever let it go this time. I said, ooh, I'm blinded by the lights. No, I can't sleep until I feel your touch. I'm blinded by the lights. No, I can't sleep until I feel your touch. Feel free to be whoever you wanna be. Feel free to dance, feel free to sing, just feel free. Feels like the world is picking on ya. Feels like it's picking on me.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Two Tone Talk podcast. Goodness gracious, it is episode 73, and I could have never guessed that this week would have ended up being as crazy as it has been. Obviously, we did our normal episode on Monday, which was when things were still up in the air with Vrabel. That was a crazy day. And then Tuesday, Vrabel was fired, so we jumped on here, did a bonus episode all about that, and then Wednesday had to do another bonus episode because I had so much to say. And that Wednesday episode, episode 72, that is the best episode of this podcast that has ever been done. I am so proud of episode 72. If you want to know my thoughts on the entire Vrabel situation, go listen to episode 72 of this podcast. I cannot put it any better than I put it on Wednesday. Took yesterday off, and now today we are back for episode 73, talking about the latest on the Vrabel front, talking about who the new head coach might be, talking about things that I'm encouraged about the Titans, things I'm discouraged about after the season, making playoff picks for the weekend, because unless you forgot, the NFL playoffs are starting tomorrow, and talking about all of the other stuff too. A lot of stuff has happened in football. Tuesday, Mike Vrabel was fired, but then following that was Pete Carroll stepping down, I guess, as the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. Nobody saw that coming. And then in college football, the greatest college football coach of all time, Nick Saban, announced that he's retiring. And then Bill Belichick, which we expected was officially let go as the coach of the Patriots. This has been the craziest week in terms of head coaches. And the good news is it got the Titans out of the media, because once Pete Carroll and Nick Saban and Bill Belichick, all that started happening, people totally forgot about Vrabel and the Titans. And speaking of Nick Saban, it appears that they are going to hire former Washington head coach Kalen DeBoer as the new head coach of the Alabama Crimson Tide. I don't even know who that is. I was going to tell you that right now. I don't know much about him. But let's get started with the hottest topic, and that continues to be the firing of Mike Vrabel. Some people still don't like it, but it feels like more people are coming around. Everybody needs to go listen to episode 72 of the podcast, because I'm telling you, I raised some valid points about why you should not be discouraged about the firing of Mike Vrabel. But there has been more come to light in the couple of days since I recorded. An article that went out yesterday that you had to pay $2 to read, if you're like me. Diana Rossini and John, oh Lord, what's his name? I want to give him credit. It was Diana Rossini and John, oh man, what's the guy's name? Somebody let me know in the chat. They put out an article about the timeline of what happened with Mike Vrabel that led to what happened Tuesday. What happened? Well, to sum it up for you, it all started at the end of last season when the Titans were looking for a new GM to replace John Robinson. Pretty much, Vrabel wanted full control of the roster. Did I not tell you? This is back on Monday, before Vrabel was even fired. I said, if this guy wants full control of the roster, you got to let him go. Giving a head coach full control of the whole roster is the kiss of death. Bill O'Brien, that's the only name I need to say. Mike Vrabel felt like he had earned the right to have full control of the roster. I disagree. If he wanted full control of the roster, you needed to let him go. But that rubbed Amy the wrong way. Would have rubbed me the wrong way too. Then he wanted them to hire Ryan Cowden, who was the in-house hire. He was the interim who stepped in when John Robinson was fired in the middle of the season. Vrabel wanted to make him the GM, because of course he did. Of course Vrabel wanted to do the boring, lame, uninspired in-house hire, because that's all what he did all the time. Need a new offensive coordinator? Oh, let's just elevate the in-house guy, Tim Kelly. Need a new defensive coordinator? Oh, let's just elevate the in-house guy, Shane Bowen. Need a new GM? Oh, let's just elevate the in-house guy, Ryan Cowden. It's nothing against any of those guys, but like when Vrabel's given the choice, he wants to keep everything the same as he possibly can. Amy didn't want to hire Ryan Cowden. She wanted to hire Rand Carthon. Mike Vrabel didn't believe Rand Carthon was ready. He tried to insinuate that we should hire Rand as an assistant GM. What is he, like he's Dwight Schrute? Assistant to the general manager. No. So But by all accounts, we can tell Vrabel and Rand probably had a pretty good relationship. I mean, I don't think Rand Carthon lied in his very lame press conference that he did Tuesday night, where he said, me and Vrabel always got along great. We've worked together well. I believe that was true. I don't believe there was necessarily an issue between Vrabel and Rand Carthon. I think the issue was between Vrabel and Amy Adams Strunk. Because then once they hired Rand, you get into this season, the Titans are losing. They're looking bad most of the time. We all watched it. And then there was a little thing that happened where Vrabel went to Foxborough and he went there to get inducted into the Patriots Hall of Fame, and he said some things that rubbed people in the Titans organization the wrong way. He said, you know what, you need to cherish having good ownership like this. You need to cherish having, a good, steady leadership like this because it's not like this everywhere. You guys are lucky to have this here in New England. Well, some people, not just Amy, there were numerous people in the Titans organization who said, whoa, what did he just say? And apparently Vrabel was made aware there are people who were rubbed the wrong way by what you said, and Vrabel apparently made no effort to clarify these comments. He made no effort to get with Amy, to get with anybody, to clarify what exactly he meant, that he meant no wrong. Now, let me ask you this. If you're in a relationship and you said something that you meant one way and your partner took it the wrong way and got offended or hurt by it, what would you do? You would go to any length necessary to let your partner know that you did not mean it the way they took it. You worded it the wrong way. You apologize for how you worded it to make sure that the relationship does not suffer. Vrabel did not do that. Vrabel did not make any effort whatsoever to clarify his statements, and I don't think that's an accident. Now, we all assumed that Vrabel was going to go become the coach of the Patriots. That did not happen. The Patriots have already hired their head coach, Jared Mayo, who is their new head coach. He was like a linebackers coach or something. And apparently it's been the plan for years that once Belichick left, they were going to elevate that guy to be the head coach. So there you go. Where do you think Vrabel got all of this elevating people, in-house hires? He got it from the Patriots, and it worked for them because they had Tom Brady. Okay, so anyway, Vrabel never clarified his comments. And then, and I want to zero in on this, apparently the final straw was when the Titans lost the first game to the Houston Texans. This was the one in Nashville. We were in the Oiler throwbacks. This game, apparently, after this loss in overtime to the Texans backups, I mean, their backups were in this game. Case Keenum played quarterback for the Texans in that game, and they beat the Titans. After this game, Amy was furious. And most people believe this was the moment where she decided to fire Mike Vrabel. Do you remember that game, everybody? This was the game where we continued to run Derrick Henry up the middle for like -5 yards on every first down. Do you remember this game? This was the game where I came on this very podcast the day after, and I said this offensive game plan was so horrible. Forget the roster. Forget who we had out there. This offensive game plan was so horrible that it concerns me for the future. It concerns me that we could put together an offensive game plan that was this bad. That's what I said after that Houston game. And apparently, Amy Adams Strunk agreed with me. She watched us in those Oiler throwbacks against Houston's backups when they had Case Keenum playing quarterback. She watched us continue to run Henry up the middle and get stuffed. She watched us continue to run Henry up the middle for -5 yards. She watched us continue to do it over and over and over again with absolutely no success. And she finally stood up and said, "No more. I'm done." And me sitting here right now, I'm just telling you, I don't blame her one dang bit, because that's the very way I felt. You talk about the roster, you talk about the lack of talent, I agree. But the offensive game plan that day against that team was so bad that as a fan, I walked away not even caring about how bad the roster was. I walked away saying, how could we possibly have gone out there and did that? That offensive game plan was everything wrong with Vrabel. The stubbornness, the commitment to conservative, boring mentalities that get you nowhere in the NFL. It was all on display in that game where Amy finally said, "I'm done with this. I'm done losing to Case Keenum because we continue to run the ball up the middle on every 1st and 10. It's nothing new. It's nothing new. Last year, week 18 against Jacksonville, we were in a win and in situation. You win, and you win the AFC South and host a playoff game. And we ran the ball up the middle on 1st and 10 so many times that ESPN had to put together a graphic. Hey guys, the Titans have run the ball up the middle 9 out of 10 times on 1st and 10 so far here tonight. That's what happened. And Amy finally said, "Enough. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of hearing about running the ball. I'm sick of hearing about how we got to get the run game going to get the play action game going. I'm sick of hearing about it. I'm sick of watching you insist on running up the middle when it hasn't worked all day. I'm sick of watching you not be able to adjust on the fly and change the game plan up a little bit." And who can blame her? Again, everything I had to say about the Vrabel firing I said on Wednesday, but let me tell you something. I'm not discouraged. I'm not discouraged about firing Mike Vrabel because I'm sick of playing conservative, play not to lose football. I'm sick of getting an 8-0 lead and then playing not to lose the rest of the game. I'm sick of it. And I'm sick of acting like this guy's irreplaceable. I'm sick of acting like this guy is one of the greatest coaches of all time and the Titans just doomed their franchise by firing him. I'm sick of acting that way. We went 6-11. We haven't scored 30 points in a game since December of 2021. I'm sick of hearing about it. If he's so good, why didn't New England hire him? Everybody was so ready to celebrate Mike Vrabel becoming the coach of the Patriots. They couldn't wait. He's returning home. ESPN already probably had their headlines ready. The prodigal son's returned. Well, the Patriots apparently didn't even consider hiring the guy. That's how good he is. Leader of men, baby. Leader of men. Who cares if we can't get 200 yards in a game? Leader of men. Who cares if we have to struggle to score 20 points in a game? We got a leader of men as the coach. This guy understands the game. Okay, great. Can he win? I said it before, I'll say it again. I like Mike Vrabel, and I do think he's a good coach, but he ain't great. He ain't great. He'll end up somewhere else if he wants to. I mean, I personally think they're saying it's now in the cards that he might take a year off. Maybe. Some people have insinuated he might want to return to be a college football coach. I don't see Vrabel being a college football coach at all. But I do think that, if he wants, he could have the Washington job. He could have, well, I say that. Washington just hired a new GM today. It was a great hire for them. And apparently they're trying to do what the Titans are doing, which is push their franchise into a more conservative, progressive type of mentality with analytics and everything like that. So if you're wanting to do that, I really don't know if Mike Vrabel's your guy, Washington. But either way, that article that came out pretty much laid out and I'm not going to say Amy handled everything right. There were some instances in there where they said that Amy never talked to Vrabel about any of this stuff that was bothering her. She just let it fester. That's not a good thing. You don't need to do that. You have every right to call your coach in and talk to him when he does something that's bothering you. They also said that the Dolphins game on Monday Night Football, where the Titans came back and won, they said Amy actually left that game with 4 minutes to go because she assumed it was over. I'm sorry, I don't like that either. You're the owner. You stay till this thing's over. I don't agree with it. So I'm not going to sit here and just say that Amy's right in everything she does, but I am not going to sit here and say that this franchise is doomed because we fired Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel's a good coach. But this team has trouble getting points, has trouble getting yards, and I'm sick of watching it. Now, you look at potential head coaching hires. People that we would like to see become the Tennessee Titans head coach. Obviously, there are a ton of interviews set up. The Titans are going to interview a lot of people. I got to take a sip of my drink here. 1 second. Little ASMR for you. The Titans have interviewed a lot of people. They just got the Twitter notification. They have completed an interview with Bengals offensive coordinator Brian Callahan. Hey, I don't mind Callahan. I've actually studied up on some of these coaches. Because in the past, I would just let somebody else tell me who we needed to hire. But I have actually studied up. And I don't have any names that you haven't already heard. I'm not going to tell you any candidates that you haven't already heard a bunch of people mention. I would love to have Ben Johnson, offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, and he's a hot commodity. Everybody's wanting to interview this guy. Everybody's wanting to, have a chance to interview him, and a lot of people are going to want him to come be the head coach. But, man, I know the Lions are in the playoffs right now, but I would love to get Ben Johnson as the head coach of the Titans. I would love it. Bobby Slowick, offensive coordinator of the Houston Texans. That's another name people are talking about. Obviously, the success that he has had with C.J. Stroud, people want to see that kind of success with Will Levis. He's had success really everywhere he goes. So, Bobby Slowick, we've got an interview planned with him. So that would be a great option as well. Frank Smith, offensive coordinator for the Miami Dolphins. We've got an interview scheduled with him. I don't hate that either. Probably lean a little more toward Slowick and Ben Johnson. And obviously, like I said, we just completed an interview with Brian Callahan, offensive coordinator for the Cincinnati Bengals. I like him too. You've heard what guys like Jamar Chase and T. Higgins have said about him, that he is the backbone of the success that we've seen from that Bengals offense over the years. I love that. Hey, good. We're also interviewing the Eagles offensive coordinator. Not as sure about that. And we've got interviews with the Lions defensive coordinator, the Ravens defensive coordinator, McDonald, Dan Quinn. We've got interviews with guys like that, but I'm like most of you, I want an offensive-minded head coach. And I'm aware, like Dan Quinn deserves a chance to be a head coach somewhere. He took the Atlanta Falcons to the Super Bowl. He's done a great job as the Cowboys defensive coordinator. He deserves to be a coach somewhere, but for Tennessee, when have we ever had an offensive-minded head coach that really had a chance? We've had Munchak and Vrabel and Malarkey. Like, I want an offensive guru. I want a Sean McVay or a Shanahan to come in here, okay? Do you think we're going to keep Derrick Henry and pay him his money? No, I don't. I think Derrick Henry is as good as gone. I mean, I think that last Sunday against Jacksonville, the way he conducted himself, I mean, that felt like a send-off. That felt like him saying goodbye. And, and you've got Spears there who looks ready to go. So, I mean, I'm not going to say it's impossible, depending on what kind of money offers he gets. But, it's going to be a new head coach. I don't know if it'll be as high of a priority. But yeah, I want an offensive-minded head coach. I don't think those guys are bad hires. I'm not saying they don't deserve to be a head coach somewhere, but for Tennessee, we've tried the defensive-minded guys. I want an offensive-minded guy to be the head coach of this team. I told you I was going to do kind of a season in review. 5 things I was encouraged about and 5 things I was discouraged about coming out of the Titans year. Now, a lot of that discouragement is now changed a little bit. I mean, I still have the same stuff listed, but because we're going to have a new head coach, it's kind of, this stuff would be more discouraging if we were bringing back all of the same people. 5 discouraging things for the Titans. Number 5 is the secondary. Secondary was really bad. Obviously, we traded Kevin Byard. Roger McCreary does some good things as a slot corner, but Christian Fulton was massively disappointing. Sean Murphy-Bunting, hit or miss. But we have a need at corner. We have a big-time need, maybe 2 corners. But the secondary, very disappointing this year. Number 4, former players playing better and staying healthier with other teams. David Long has had a wonderful season with the Miami Dolphins, and the guy could not stay on the field in Tennessee. And Mike Vrabel didn't want to keep him. Now he's in Miami, and not only is he playing great, but for the most part, he's been very healthy and played well. And there are guys like this all over the league. Josh Reynolds, we couldn't find a way to get him the ball. Now he's in Detroit. He catches passes every week. A.J. Brown, I don't even have to get into that. We'll talk about A.J. here in a second. But there are a ton of players in this league on both sides of the ball who the Titans couldn't keep healthy, couldn't figure out how to use them, didn't see a need for them, and then they went somewhere else, and not only are they staying healthy, but they're playing well. That's discouraging. It would be more discouraging if we were keeping all the same people. Number 3, the offense as a whole. We came into this season with a new offensive coordinator, DeAndre Hopkins, different offensive line. We came into this season expecting things to be at least better than they were the year before, and in some ways it was worse. The offense as a whole, I just mention this all the time, and I hate to sound like a broken record, have not scored 30 points in a game since December of 2021. Like, I was so disappointed with the offense. And like I said, these are 5 things that I was discouraged about coming out of the Titans year. I've got the secondary. I've got former players who are playing better and staying healthier in other places. And now I've arrived at the offense. And again, this would be more discouraging if we were keeping all of the same people. But now that we're getting a new coaching staff pretty much, hopefully that gives cause for encouragement. I'm going to talk about AJ here in a second. Number 2, Treylon Burks. What just a very disappointing season for Treylon. A guy that we really hoped would take the next step. And maybe with a new coaching staff, maybe with a new OC, maybe with a new head coach, they could figure out how to solve the Treylon Burks puzzle. But this season, that he was hurt, he missed a ton of games again, and when he was in there, whether the quarterback was Tannehill or Levis or whoever, we found a way to get Hopkins the ball. We found a way to get Chig the ball. We found a way, even at times, to get Kyle Phillips the ball. We found a way to get Chris Moore the ball. And we could not figure out how to get Treylon Burks the ball. We may find out later on that it was a coaching thing and that we weren't putting him in a position to succeed. But in any event, it is discouraging to see how this season turned out for Treylon Burks. And then the number one thing that I would be discouraged about coming out of this season would be the offensive line. Now, we've got the first-round draft pick we can use on an offensive line. We've got money in free agency we can use and a new coaching staff coming in. I get all of that, but this offensive line, I'm not saying we expected it to be great, but we at least expected it to be better, and it wasn't. So that's the top 5 things that I was the most discouraged about coming out of the season. Number 5, the secondary. Number 4, former players playing better in other places, staying healthier. Number 3, the offense as a whole. Number 2, Treylon Burks. And number 1, the offensive line. Those were the top 5 things I was discouraged about coming out. Now the top 5 things that I am encouraged about, and this has changed a little bit. Number 5, Harold Landry. Harold Landry, coming off of a torn ACL, started a little slow. Some people were worried, but I think for the second half of the year especially, I think Harold Landry was back to form. I mean, he looked good. A lot of reason to be encouraged about him going into next year. Number 4, Tyjae Spears. Tyjae Spears, rookie running back. I'm excited about him. I'm not just excited about what he brings to the run game. I'm excited about what he brings to the pass game as well. We saw, just at times how dynamic of a player this is. He could be a big-time guy for this offense if he could stay healthy and is used correctly. I was very encouraged about him. Number 3, DeAndre Hopkins. Now, I don't know where we stand with him. He's got another year on his deal with the coaching change. I feel like if he asked to be sent somewhere else, he could be. But I hope he's back because DeAndre Hopkins broke the curse. We were worried coming in about D-Hop, about, we've had all of these legendary receivers come here before, and it never works out. Well, it worked out with D-Hop. What a season for him. Number 2, Will Levis. Will Levis. We saw enough good from him to be very encouraged about him going forward. We saw enough from Will Levis that I think there's reason for excitement surrounding him. Falcons game, his debut obviously was great, but I thought just 4 days later went on the road to Pittsburgh against a tough defense. Second start ever, first on the road. I thought he played well there. I thought the Dolphins game where he did what he did, threw the interception early, then came back, played well, led them back from being down 14 with 4 minutes to go. Great. While getting beat up by lack of protection, I'm excited about Will Levis. And then number 1, this has changed over the last few days, but new head coach. You guys know how I feel about the whole Vrabel thing. I talked about it on Wednesday. Again, I would encourage you to go listen to that episode because it's the best episode of this podcast yet. But I'm encouraged about getting a new head coach. I'm encouraged about the fact that Amy and this organization was not content with staying stuck in the past and running an offense that was not very productive. I'm encouraged by that. Glad. And so that's the top 5 things I'm encouraged about. Harold Landry, Tyjae Spears, DeAndre Hopkins, Will Levis, and new head coach, not to mention all of the cap space that we have to work with. Top 10 draft pick, thumbs up from me. It is now time for the final edition for this season. The final edition of the 32-1 Two-Tone Talk Power Rankings. This is just how I see it. And this is the final 32-1 of the year. Let's do it. The bottom 3. It's only fitting. Number 32, Carolina Panthers. What a situation. They have no first-round draft pick. They have a terrible roster. Long way to go. And they're looking for a new head coach. Number 31, Washington Commanders, but the Commanders appear to be headed in the right direction. Had a good hire at GM today. Now they need to get the right head coaching hire. They've got the number 2 pick in the draft. They can get their franchise quarterback. Washington, yes, it was a terrible season. Times have been tough, but I do think Washington is a team who's headed in the right direction. Number 30, rounding out the bottom 3, I went ahead and went with the New England Patriots at number 30. I just think the Patriots, 4-13, a new era beginning for the first time for them in a long time. I'm interested to see how the new guy does as coach, what direction they go. They've got, I think, the number 3 pick in the draft, so they can go quarterback as well. But the Patriots currently, after this season, yes, they were horrible. Now, we move into the 20s. Again, the final edition of the 32-1 power rankings. Number 29, rather. Chargers. They've got their quarterback at least. And I wonder what they're going to do in the draft because they're ahead of us. I hope Danico Autry stays, whoever's asking that. I hope Danico Autry stays. But I wouldn't bank on it. Chargers are number 29, and they need a new start with Herbert, but Staley wasn't the guy. Number 28, Arizona Cardinals. I think people kind of expected Arizona to be bad this year, and they were. Be interesting to see what they do with Kyler Murray. You know, they've got number 4, I think, in the draft. But we'll see what they do. But they're in a tough division, so they gotta try to figure this out. Number 27, Jets, Jets. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers will be back, hopefully, for them. He'll be back. And I think the Jets can still be dangerous. I think you're still going to have people talking about the Jets going into next year, very excited about them because Rodgers will be back. And they've got a good roster, but it's just the quarterback situation doomed them this year. Number 26, the good guys, the Tennessee Titans. They finished 6-11. Obviously, we know all the deals there. I don't need to elaborate on that any further. Number 25, the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons obviously fired Arthur Smith. They're looking for a new head coach. They've been rumored to be going after Belichick. Disappointing year for the Falcons. I mean, felt like that division was really up for grabs, and the quarterback situation just did them in. Desmond Ridder, not very good. And so we'll see. I mean, they're right after us in the draft. They're a team that could potentially trade up, try to get a quarterback. I don't know who would fall to them at 8 or 9, wherever they are. Number 24, the Minnesota Vikings. Disappointing year for them. I think if Kirk Cousins had not gotten hurt early on, I think the Vikings would have had a better run down the stretch. But without him, again, the quarterback situation just kind of put them behind the 8 ball. Number 23, the New York Giants, who are apparently, as I thought, sticking with Daniel Jones. And they have the number 5 pick in the draft. So that could be a potential landing spot for Marvin Harrison if he falls that far. It could be a potential landing spot for Malik Neighbors or Brock Bowers or one of those tackles that the Titans are wanting. But, I think it's a mistake to stick with Daniel Jones. I don't think Daniel Jones is the guy, but apparently the Giants are going to stick with him. Saquon Barkley leaving. A lot of uncertainty surrounding the Giants. Number 22, the Chicago Bears. Bears, I really thought were rolling to get the season ended, and then they end the season in typical fashion, losing to the Green Bay Packers. But I got the Bears at 22. I think they're going to stick with Fields, and I don't know if that means they're going to try to trade back. I don't know if that means they're going to try to take Marvin Harrison there. That's going to be an interesting discussion. Caleb Williams has said he doesn't want to go to Chicago. I got to wonder if Caleb Williams' draft stock is going to drop because he's such a spoiled brat. Number 21, the Denver Broncos. I mean, again, a team in a unique position because they're going to be looking for a quarterback. They're going away from Russell Wilson, obviously, and they're not in a position really to draft one of those tippy top guys unless they trade up, which would be a major trade. So we'll see what's going to happen with the Broncos, but they're kind of they were a mid team this year. We go to the other side of the screen here. Number 20, the Raiders. The Raiders are another team. I feel like they're a quarterback away. I feel like the Raiders are a quarterback away. I feel like they got a good roster. Obviously, a lot of people think they're going to hire Pierce to be their new head coach, the guy who's been their interim head coach. I think that would be a good decision. The Titans have an interview with him. But, the Raiders, they need to figure out the quarterback situation. Got to wonder if that's a place where Russell Wilson could end up this offseason. Number 19, the Cincinnati Bengals. What an unfortunate season for them with Joe Burrow going down. I don't think anybody would have thought the Bengals would miss the playoffs because they've just been a surefire playoff team for years. But lo and behold, they missed with Burrow being out and all that. That just kind of doomed them. Weren't quite able to get over the hump, even though they were competitive. Number 18, the Indianapolis Colts. Good to see the Colts missing the playoffs because they're a bunch of clowns over there. Everybody's excited about them getting Anthony Richardson back. I'm not saying you shouldn't be optimistic about it. I'm just saying the guy's only played in like 3 games. I don't know why we're acting like he's a proven hot commodity when he's barely even played. But the Colts absolutely were much better than I thought they would be this year. And, they end up missing the playoffs because a guy dropped the pass that was right in his hands. But that should have been Jonathan Taylor catching that ball instead of whoever it was. Number 17, the Jacksonville Jaguars. I can't believe the Jaguars are this low on the list. I think this is the lowest that the Jags have been on the list all year, and they deserve it. I forget that it was against the Titans. I can't believe, with everything on the line, I can't believe they looked as bad as they did on Sunday. And really down the stretch. I mean, they lost, They lost 5 of their last 6 games. The only one they won was against Carolina. I mean, if I'm a Jaguars fan, I have some real concerns about Trevor Lawrence. I think he had a bad year. I don't think he lived up to the hype at all. I don't think this team lived up to the hype at all. To be 8-3 at one point and finish the season 9-8, missing the playoffs, letting Houston storm past you and take the division. Terrible, disastrous year for Jacksonville. Number 16, the Seattle Seahawks. We'll see kind of where Seattle's going, now that they have let Pete Carroll go. A lot of people think Dan Quinn makes sense to be the next coach of the Seattle Seahawks. We'll see. But I really, for much of the season, I thought that the Seahawks were going to make the playoffs. But, they dropped a couple games there toward the end. Missed the playoffs. That's a tough ending to the year for them. And then, of course, Pete Carroll leaving is kind of a tough thing for them, too. Number 15, the New Orleans Saints. This is the team that I have as being the best team not making the playoffs. Because every team from here on out's playoff teams. The Saints really were playing like the team that if they would have somehow won the NFC South, they might have been dangerous in the playoffs because they whooped Tampa Bay, then they whooped Atlanta, and they looked like they were ready to go into the playoffs. But unfortunately for them, they didn't do enough in the first half of the season. They don't end up making it. The Bucs win the division, but the Saints have a lot to build on. Number 14, we are to the playoff teams now. Number 14, I got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think the Bucs are very lucky that they had Carolina in Week 18 because I don't think Tampa Bay, they were rolling there for a little bit, but then they got whooped by New Orleans. They looked bad against Carolina in spite of the fact that they won. Now they're hosting Philadelphia Monday night. I think Tampa Bay may be a one and done. I just feel like it's one of those situations where somebody had to win the NFC South, and they ended up being the lucky winners there. Number 13, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Steelers, I got to give, Mike Tomlin deserves his flowers for getting them to the playoffs. Mason Rudolph has come in and played really well for them. We'll see if he can continue. Obviously, they're playing Buffalo on Sunday afternoon, and the game's going to be very cold. So I think good on the Steelers for getting there. I just think the Steelers are probably a one and done as well. Number 12, the Green Bay Packers. The Packers really salvaged their season because it looked like they were lost at one point. But kudos to them, even though they do kind of feel like, that 7 seed who just squeaked in, like somebody had to make it, and so here comes Green Bay. But the Packers are at number 12. Number 11, the Philadelphia Eagles. I got the Eagles at 11. They've totally melted down. They've lost 5 of their last 6 games. AJ, has deleted his Twitter. He's deleted any mention of the Eagles off of his Instagram. And I hate to say I told you so, but I mean, this was a long time coming. And the Eagles are totally melting down at the worst possible time. They're a playoff team, and it sure don't feel like it. And I don't know what's going to happen Monday night, but the Eagles, to watch them on Sunday against the Giants, it was sad. It was like, what has happened to this team? And I think if they lose to Tampa Bay, I think they're going to fire Nick Sirianni. I think if they lose to Nick Sirianni, or if they lose to Tampa Bay, they are going to fire Nick Sirianni. We are to the top 10 now. The final top 10 of the season. I got the Houston Texans at number 10. Obviously, what a remarkable year for them. DeMeco Ryans in his first year as a head coach. CJ Stroud is a rookie. Nobody thought they were going to be anything. They end up winning the AFC South. They're going to be hosting a playoff game tomorrow, and got to give kudos to the Texans. I mean, I hate to do it, but what a year for them. They are at number 10. Now we move on to number 9, which is the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins are in the playoffs, but it really feels like the Dolphins have fallen apart. To let Buffalo come back and take that division, and honestly, the game that ended up killing the Dolphins was that Monday nighter against Tennessee, where they gave up a 14-point lead with less than 4 minutes to go in the game. At home, I mean, I had a feeling when it happened, this is going to come back to haunt them and their playoff aspirations. Number 8, how about the Kansas City Chiefs? The Chiefs, who are going to be playing in a game that may go down as the coldest game in NFL history tomorrow night. I mean, it's been a weird year for the Chiefs, but at the end of the day, they finished the season with, a 3-game win streak. It's still Mahomes. It's still Kelsey. It's still Andy Reid. So there you go. Number 7, the Rams. I've got the Rams all the way up there at number 7. I've been championing their cause for weeks, but the Rams, they're rolling. They're rolling into these playoffs, and I've been saying for weeks they're going to be a sleeper team. I would look out for the Rams. Number 6, the Detroit Lions. The Lions, you got to feel good for the Lions. Winning their division for the first time in 30 years. And just this is the year that Lions fans have dreamed of for so long. Winning the division, winning a heck of a lot more than you're losing. Really great year for the Lions. You can't help but feel good for them. They should have one more win than they do, but they got cheated by the refs in that one game. Number 5, the Cleveland Browns. Kevin Stefanski, Coach of the Year. That defense is going to be problems, and what a story Joe Flacco is coming in from off of the couch to lead this team. And who would have thought at this point, at the end of the year, the Cleveland Browns would be in the top 5 on a list like this. Number 4, the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys whooped up on the Commanders. They are the 2 seed in the NFC, which means they're at least going to have most of their games at home. And everybody's just waiting on that Cowboy meltdown that always happens in the playoffs. We'll see. They're playing Green Bay. I think that's a favorable matchup for them. Moving into the top 3, I got Buffalo at number 3. Buffalo's been rolling. And what a difference just a few weeks makes. Not only are they in the playoffs, they're the 2 seed. They're going to be hosting playoff games in that raucous Buffalo atmosphere. Man, Buffalo Bills are going to be tough to beat. Number 2, the 49ers. I know the 49ers lost in week 18, but I mean, they're playing their backups, so I don't even count that against them. They are one of the teams to beat. And then number 1, the Baltimore Ravens. I keep them at 1. I know they lost, but again, they were playing their backups in the rain. So I don't count that against them. So I've still got the Ravens at number 1 as the team to beat. The NFL playoffs begin tomorrow. Let's make some picks. The first game is the Browns on the road against the Texans. I think that C.J. Stroud will meet the moment. I think that C.J. Stroud will play well. But I think the Browns win. Because at the end of the day, I think Joe Flacco is going to game manage his way through. And at some point, I think this Browns defense is going to cause the rookie C.J. Stroud to make enough of a mistake that it cost Houston. I'm going with Cleveland over Houston. Tomorrow night, it's going to be cold. It's going to be Miami and Kansas City. I'm going with the Chiefs. I think that I don't even know if I would trust Tua in normal temperatures, but I'm sure not going to trust him in this cold of temperatures. I'm going with the Chiefs over the Dolphins. Moving on to Sunday, another cold game, the Steelers and the Bills. I'm going with the Bills. I just think the Steelers don't have the firepower. I think the Bills are rolling. In Buffalo, Mason Rudolph. Yeah, I'm picking the Bills. Sunday afternoon, we finally get an NFC matchup. It's the Packers and the Cowboys. I would love for the Packers to win this football game because I hate the Cowboys, but I'm going with the Cowboys here. Like I said, the Packers just feel like that team that just slipped into the playoffs because somebody had to take the 7th seed. I'm going with the Cowboys over the Packers in probably the most lopsided game of the weekend. Sunday night, it is the Matt Stafford homecoming. It is the Rams and the Lions in Detroit. Detroit is so excited. They've won their division for the first time in 30 years. They're excited about everything going on. I'm going with the Rams. I'm going with the Rams. I think that the Rams, I've been telling you for weeks, they're a sleeper team. I trust Matthew Stafford a heck of a lot more than I trust Jared Goff. And this would just be the most Detroit Lions thing ever. You're pumped. You're excited. You got a home playoff game. You won your division. And you get put out by the guy you traded to the other team. I'm going with the Rams. And then finally, Monday, it is the Eagles and the Buccaneers. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't even know who's taking the field for Philly. I don't know if, because A.J. Brown wasn't even at practice today. Jalen Hurts hasn't thrown a pass since the game Sunday. Against all odds, I'm going to go with the Eagles. I think the Eagles, it would be too easy to pick against them right now. It would be too easy to pick against Philly because of everything that's going wrong. So for that reason, I'm going with the Eagles over the Bucs Monday night. Browns over the Texans. Chiefs over the Dolphins. Bills over the Steelers. Cowboys over the Packers. Rams over the Lions. Eagles over the Bucs. Those are my picks. Enjoy the playoffs this weekend and keep your eyes peeled for more Tennessee Titans head coaching news. And people in the chat are talking about it. Can the Titans trade for A.J. Brown and bring him home? Hey, I would welcome the old boy back with open arms. Thank you guys for joining me on the Two Tone Talk podcast. I will be back Monday. This is the Two Tone Talk by God pod, where we're staying way too high on the wins, way too low on the losses. God bless you, everybody. Tighten up. Bye.
Whoever you wanna be, feel free to dance, feel free to sing, just feel free. Feels like the world is picking on ya, feels like it's picking on me, but trying to please everybody, that ain't no way to be.